You walk past a small bakery every morning. The smell hits you before the door even opens. Warm butter, sugar, something baking that you cannot quite name. There is a line out front by 7 a.m. People are handing over $5, $6, $7 for a croissant and a coffee without even checking the price. You do the math in your head. Flour is cheap. Sugar is cheap. Butter is not free, but it is not expensive either. This looks like the easiest business in the world. Buy cheap ingredients, bake them into something people crave, sell for 4 times what it cost you. It is the kind of math that makes people quit their jobs and sign a lease. And on paper, it actually checks out. A croissant that costs about 65 cents to make sells for $4.50. That is a food cost of under 15%. Compare that to almost any other food business, and it looks like a money printer bolted to a storefront. But here is the part nobody tells you before you sign that lease. The bakery industry in the United States generates well over $40 billion a year, and somewhere between 40 and 60% of new bakeries do not make it past their 3rd year. Not because the pastries were bad, because the business underneath the pastries was never actually understood. By the end of this, you will know exactly where a bakery's money really comes from, where it quietly disappears, and why 2 bakeries selling the exact same croissant can end the year in completely different places. Let's kill the biggest myth first. People think a bakery makes money because ingredients are cheap. They are cheap. Flour, sugar, eggs, butter, these are some of the lowest cost raw materials in all of food service. Gross margins on baked goods regularly sit between 65 and 85%. On paper, that is one of the best margins in retail. Better than most restaurants, better than most cafes. So why do so many bakeries still lose money every single month? Because gross margin is not profit. It is what is left before the real bill arrives. And the real bill in a bakery is brutal. Labor alone eats up 25 to 30% of revenue, and it is not cheap labor. A skilled production baker who can actually run a commercial kitchen commands $18 to $28 an hour, and they are in short supply almost everywhere. Now add rent. Add utilities for ovens that run for hours at a time. Add insurance, packaging, a point-of-sale system, waste from unsold product at the end of the day. Stack all of that on top of a 75% gross margin, and you land somewhere between 5 and 15% net profit if you run things well. Below 8% and something is already bleeding. That is the gap almost nobody explains before they hand over their savings for a lease deposit. Here's the part that actually separates the bakeries that survive from the ones that quietly close. Not every product in your case makes the same money. Bread is the product that gets people through the door. And bread is also the product that barely pays the bills. Margins on plain bread sit between 5 and 12%. It is heavy to make, slow to rise, and priced low because customers expect it to be cheap. Pastries and specialty cakes are a completely different business hiding inside the same building. Croissants, danishes, layer cakes, these run 55 to 65% margin, sometimes higher. And then there is the real profit engine that most people walking past the counter never even notice. Custom cakes, wedding cakes. A tiered wedding cake can sell for around $1,000, and top-tier custom bakeries are pulling gross margins near 80 to 87% on that single order. One wedding cake can generate more profit than 100 loaves of bread. This is why the bakeries that thrive rarely think of themselves as bread shops. They think of themselves as businesses, selling 3 completely different products at 3 completely different margins, and they know exactly which one is carrying the other 2. Now think about what it actually takes to open the door on day 1. A home-based operation, running under cottage food laws, can start for a couple $1,000s. That sounds tempting until you realize most states cap how much you are legally allowed to sell that way. The moment you want a real storefront, the number changes entirely. A small commercial bakery typically runs somewhere between $90,000 and $250,000 once you count equipment, build-out, permits, and the first few months of payroll before revenue catches up. Commercial ovens alone are not cheap. Ventilation systems, walk-in coolers, mixers big enough to handle real volume, this equipment often eats up 30 to 50% of your entire startup budget before you have sold a single item. And here is the detail that catches new owners off guard every single time. Your production day does not start when the doors open. It starts between 2 and 4 in the morning. Everything has to be baked, cooled, and displayed before the first customer ever walks in. You are running a manufacturing operation with a retail counter bolted onto the front of it. And most people signing the lease never fully clock that until they are 3 weeks in, exhausted, and wondering why nobody warned them. Location decides more of your future than your recipes ever will. A bakery tucked into a quiet side street with no walking traffic can make the exact same croissant as one on a busy morning commute. Corner and earn a fraction of the revenue. Foot traffic before 9 a.m. is the entire game. Office workers, school drop-offs, the person grabbing coffee before their train. These are your paying customers, and they are creatures of habit. Once someone adopts your bakery as their morning stop, they come back almost automatically, 5 days a week for years. That kind of repeat behavior is worth more than any advertising budget you could spend. Miss that morning window with a bad location, and you are stuck trying to survive on afternoon walk-ins alone, which is a much harder business to run. Independent bakeries in the U.S. typically generate somewhere between $280,000 and $750,000 a year, with the middle of that range sitting around $450,000. That is not the number that decides whether the owner actually eats well at the end of the year, though. Owner take-home typically lands between $50,000 and $95,000 annually for a single-shop operator, and that number can nearly double once someone adds wholesale accounts or a second location. Wholesale changes the entire shape of the business, selling bread and pastries to local cafes and grocery stores at 50 to 60% of retail price. Sounds like giving away margin, and in a sense it is, but it replaces unpredictable daily foot traffic with a standing order that arrives every single week, rain or shine, holiday or not. That predictability is worth more to a nervous bank account than a slightly better margin ever will be. Here's what nobody puts on the motivational poster. Roughly 20 to 30% of new food businesses do not survive their first year, and by year 3, the number for bakeries specifically climbs toward 40 to 60%. The reasons are almost always the same 3 things. Underpricing out of fear of losing customers, forgetting to count their own labor as a real cost, and ingredient prices moving faster than the menu board does. Egg prices alone jumped over 8% in a single recent year. Butter climbed. Cocoa and specialty flour have both seen sharp spikes. A bakery that priced its menu 6 months ago and never touched it again is quietly losing money on every single sale without the owner even noticing, because the register still says the same number it always has. There is one more layer to this that almost never gets mentioned, and it is the quietest, steadiest money in the entire industry: the point-of-sale company. The bakery-specific software that tracks your food cost percentage, your labor hours, your waste every single night. These companies charge a flat monthly fee, whether your bakery has its best month ever or its worst. They never touch flour. They never wake up at 3 a.m. They never worry about a butter price spike wiping out their margin, while the bakery owner is stacking 3 different profit margins on top of each other. Just to clear 10%, the software running quietly in the background is pulling a clean, predictable cut every single month with almost none of the risk. The same is often true of the landlord. A bakery in a strong morning traffic location can be paying rent that climbs every single year, locked into a long lease, while the person who owns that building carries none of the 3 a.m. wake-up calls or the flour price anxiety. The people baking the bread rarely end up holding the least risky position in their own industry. So picture 2 bakeries, same city, same size, same opening month. The first one picked a corner near a train station, built a wholesale relationship with 2 local cafes within the first year, and treats every wedding cake inquiry as the priority job of the week. Its owner takes home close to $90,000 a year and sleeps fine at night. The second one opened on a quiet residential street because the rent was cheaper, sells almost nothing but bread and basic pastries, and has never once raised prices since opening day. Its margins sit under 5%, and every ingredient price hike pushes it closer to the edge. Same industry, same skill in the kitchen, maybe even the same recipes. Completely different businesses. The flour and sugar were never the real product being sold. What was actually being sold the whole time was a habit, a location, and the discipline to know which item on the counter was quietly paying for all the others.